Mabuhay! Hindi, joke lang. Ito na tayo sa ating personal consumption expenditure or PCE. Siguro malalaman natin na ito yung sinasabi lang, ito ang preferred metric ng Federal Reserve when gauging inflation at hindi itong core CPI at itong consumer price index. Bakit? Ba't kaya ito napili ng Federal Reserve na gawing gauge ng inflation imbes na CPI? So, what is the Personal Consumption Expenditure Index or the PCE? PCE index measures price changes in consumer goods and services like inflation. PCE is often considered predictable because its weighted index we're looking at most household or buying habits that's always converging on the prevailing prices on the basket of goods. This is the one of the hindi ko man sinasabing hindi inaabangan pero mostly ito yung consensus na laging tumatama kasi hindi ko sinasabing laging, hindi mali yung word na laging sabihin natin is predictable na because nakikita na natin sa CPI yung unfolding of events. Nakikita na natin sa producer price index, nakikita na natin sa capacity utilization, nakikita na natin sa yung reflection niya sa basket of goods, lalo na dito sa personal consumption expenditure dahil predictable na Dahil yung weighted index nito, hindi katulad sa CPI na nakatingin sa most basket of good. Ito naman, most household buying habits, no? That's always converging on the prevailing prices. Pareho na siya kumbaga sumusunod na siya doon sa mga naunang data like yung sinabi ko nga yung PPI, core CPI, inflation and something na magkakaroon ng unang reflection ng price bago sa consumer price. Yung mga data na yun nauna. Kaya ito mostly itong si PCE, si PCE is parang affirmation na lang siya. Parang affirmation. Pero ito pa rin ang ginagamit ng Federal Reserve. Tutuklasin natin kung bakit. That's why most analysts like Jun Osiones, that's why most analysts preferred CPI over PCE because CPI shows the unfolding of event, thus indicating economic stability. No? And PCE shows the either elasticity or inelasticity of demand. Ngayon, ang CPI nakatingin yan nakatingin yan doon sa mismong basket of goods. Na-affect siya doon doon sa price changes of basket of goods. Ito namang PCE, ang sinusuot nito is yung elasticity at inelasticity ng demand. Ano yung ibig sabihin ng elasticity at inelasticity? Elasticity means people cut back spending even on slightest price increase. That means that yung elasticity, yung people, nagbabawas siya ng spending, makakita lang siya ng onting pagtaas ng bilihin. Inelasticity means people still buy those same amount despite huge increase. So, ang PCA, kung ang CPI ay sumusukat sa price changes ng basket of goods, ito naman, sinusukat nito yung behavior o yung behavior ng demand. Sinusukat nito whether people are still buying kahit na tumataas ng presyo or people are cutting back spending pag nakikita nilang tumataas ang presyo. So, in other words, CPI measures the price changes of basket of goods, no? While the personal consumption expenditure measure the behavior of demand through elasticity and inelasticity of the consumer. Sana malinaw ba? Okay. PCE measures price fluctuations and consumer behavior, while CPI measures the weighted average price on the basket of goods. The PCE shows how much households are spending and on what spending their income falls. Ito yung tinitingnan, no? Ito pa tinitingnan ng PCE, kaya mahalaga sa Federal Reserve. Tinitingnan yung allocation ng spending. Sa bawat kumikita, Amerikano, anong parte doon o which part of their, saan napupunta? Kung anong sektor ba o anong item ang pinupuntahan ng kanilang income? Mostly. Ito ba yung nakafocus sa household? Ito ba yung nakafocus mostly sa services? Ito ba yung nakafocus mostly sa leisure? Ayun, tinitingnan nyo ng PCE kung saan nahuhulog o saan napupunta yung spending. Unlike sa CPI is nakafocus doon, no? Nakafocus na siya, fixated na siya doon sa basket of goods. Now, CPI follows a fixed basket of goods and services, while PCE accounts on the changes of consumption based on the idea that if goods becomes expensive, consumer will use cheaper alternatives. Okay, ayun na, balik tayo, no? CPI follows a fixed basket of goods and services, while the PCE accounts on the changes of consumption based on the idea that if goods becomes expensive, consumer will use or will resort to cheaper alternatives. Ngayon, isa pang pinagkaiba, no? Sabi ko nga, yung CPI, it is tracking the basket of goods, while yung PCE is tinatrack naman niya yung reason, no? Kung reason doon sa pagtaas. To sa CPI, no? It's sabi nating CPI goes up or down. Ito naman PCE, mas weighted siya, no? Tinitingnan niya yung behavior, why the prices go up and down. Number 2, saan nag-allocate yung pera, saang bandang sektor o anong klaseng, saan napupunta yung expenditure. And number 3, yun nga sasabi ko, mini-measure yung elasticity at inelasticity. And number 3, it measures based on the assumption na pag magmahal ang presyo, yung mga tao naghahanap ng murang alternative, no? Yung mas weighted siya o mas detalyado siya, although hindi ko laging o masabi natin although predictable na siya. Kaya yung mga consumer, ngayon magsabi, but yung mga analysts mas preferred pa rin yung CPI. Syempre, most analysts are speculative in nature. They want to speculate the future. Kaya mas prefer nila yung nag-gauge doon sa unfolding of events rather doon sa mga naka-price in na events. Gets? Ito kasi parang affirmation na lang tong PCE. Parang binibigay na lang niya yung mas detailed part na hindi kasama doon sa CPI. Kaya in return, kahit ito ang mas gusto ng mga analysts ang CPI to speculate the future, mas preferred ng Federal Reserve itong PCE dahil mas detailed to. And of course, they are policy makers at gusto nila malaman kung talaga bang magtataas sila ng interest rate o hindi based dito sa mas may weight na average o sabihin mas detalyadong average. Sana nakuha nyo, no, itong ating. Okay, susunod. PCE measures data pertaining to services like education and entertainment. It also measures durable goods like cars and non-durables like fuel. And normally, PCE predicts lower inflation than CPI, which makes it the Fed's favorite gauge in inflation. Bakit? The Federal Reserve preferred the PCE over CPI because it is composed of sabi natin broad range of expenditures, which is important when reviewing economic conditions and eventually will affect their changes in their policies and projection. Kaya sinasabi ko, no, na mas broad ang dinidiscuss na topic nitong PCE kaysa CPI because CPI will only tells you the changes of price in the basket of goods, kung ano man yung mga item na nagsitaasan sa hindi. While the PCE, it tells you the behavior of the market. Kaya nga sabi ko sa iyo, the behavior will tell you the prediction or the proper prediction on the supply and demand or the increased demand. Kasi sabi ko nga, it is the consumer spending that pushes the economy. And it is the consumer spending that pushes the demand. And it is the demand that pushes inflation. So the Federal Reserve preferred a more broad o mas malawak na pagtataya o pagtingin sa behavior noong demand because doon nila nakikita o nakakapag-gauge sila ng mas maayos o nakakapag-pronounce sila ng mas maayos na monetary policy or policy changes based on the most broad information na pinoprovide ng personal consumption expenditure. And another reason is while CPI shows changes in consumer expenditure, it only reveals changes in this price established by fixed basket. PCE, on the other hand, includes a broad range of household expenses. CPI data, part of it were surveyed on consumers' perspective, while PCE data were acquired based on business survey, which tend to be more reliable. Now, most CPI are surveyed on the consumer. And that will be subjective because consumer may feel poor or the consumer may feel still rich, may still feel rich. Ngayon, pag nagtanong ka sa nag-survey ka sa mga mahihirap, wala tsambahan mo na survey mo talagang nega sa mundo, hindi naman. Mga nega sa mundo talaga, no? Siyempre, sasabihin niya, tumaas ang presyo nahihirapan ako. And that is still based on hindi siya based on objective, no? Based siya doon sa nararamdaman ng customer. That is inflation. Kung sa tingin niya umunti na nabibili niya, pero that is not objective part. Hindi naman nag-compute yung taong yon. It is based on his feelings. And that will resonate kung sabihin natin 1,000 nararamdaman nilang medyo naghihirap sila, yun na ang pinaka-bias nun sa CPI, sa survey. Pero itong survey ng PCE, it is based on the survey on the producer's level. O sabihin natin na survey, yung CPI is consumer's perspective lang. Kaso yung PCE is a data were acquired based on business survey. Kasi ang business survey, pag tinanong mo yan, magbabase, mostly, ang businessman, magbabase yan based on data. Based on tangible data. Kaya mas accurate siya. Mas reliable. Because hindi naman magsasabi ang business na feeling ko ganito feeling ko hindi. Magbe-base yan doon sa nakikita niya sa takbo ng negosyo niya. That's because hawak niya ang data ng takbo ng negosyo niya. Kaya mas kaya mas reliable siya over doon sa, hindi ko naman sinasabing hindi reliable yung consumer, pero sabi ko nga, one consumer may feel more poorer while other one may feel still wala namang pinagbago, and medyo sosing consumer may feel na wala namang pinagbago, mayaman pa rin kami, kaya pa rin naman bilhin. Kaya that makes it a little bit less reliable than the personal consumption expenditure, which survey mismo yung business, because business will not provide a statement na based lang sa feeling niya, because business will hold data to back up their claim. Gets? Ayan. Okay, and in addition, PCE was a formula that measures changes in consumer behavior, which is not used in CPI, which makes PCE a more comprehensive metric for inflation. And that's the reason, kahit laging yan, while the institution or the most analysts want CPI to gauge the future, because it is more on unfolding, it is more on the unfolding prices, di ba? In unfolding events, while the PCE might be already priced in, parang affirmation na lang na CPI, pero mas broad at detailed yung pinoprovide niyang information, because it's not only just measure the price, it is measuring the elasticity, or aka the behavior of the consumer, which makes it more broad o mas malawak ang pinoprovide niyang information, which is essential for a central bank policymaker to properly craft its monetary policy assessment. Mas ma-assess niya ang ekonomiya because masasabi niya kung which sector ang tumataas ang spending and saan napupunta yung spending ng ordinaryong consumer, in which sector ang nagbe-benefit. So, dyan po muna for now, at sana naintindihan nyo itong maliit nating katiting na information about personal consumption expenditure, at sa susunod niyan, i-discuss na natin last part of our economic indicator tungkol sa growth or the gross domestic product. Maraming salamat po.